Are we gonna get this right, guys? This time around, are we going to get this right? Hi everyone, this is Ali Hussein Kasim of Alitalkstech. In this week's weekly roundup, we're looking at 5 interesting stories. We will be covering a digital banking revolution and looking at legacy and how new players are coming in to start rethinking the whole digital banking, core banking ecosystem in Africa and beyond. Then we'll look at banking's new frontier, fintech mergers and acquisitions, and the regulatory balancing act across Africa. We'll then cover a crypto story that is super interesting, Nano Labs $1 billion buy of BNB, that's Binance's native coin. Binance, for those who may not be in the picture, is the world's largest crypto exchange. Last year, $8 trillion plus of trades. Then we look at grift in the land of opportunity in the US. Lastly, we look at Africa and its leadership at the crossroads when it comes to policy, strategy, and its tech identity. So let's dive in straight into this digital banking revolution. What am I talking about? What legacy institutions are looking to be disrupted, are already being disrupted? So let's start with the core banking conversation. We have some of the largest core banking players in the world: Temenos, Finacle, Oracle, huge monolithic platforms that take sometimes years to update or move or upgrade from one system to another, with the intended $1 billion or hundreds of millions of shillings or hundreds of billions of nairas or tens of billions of rand required for big banks to implement these platforms. Now, there's an interesting, quiet revolution going on in the Kenyan banking sector when it comes to these systems. 2 of Kenya's largest banks, NCBA and KCB, have chosen a hitherto unknown player called Murong Technologies from China. And this bank has quietly or is quietly transforming how these banks operate from a core banking and innovation layer when it comes to digital banking. NCB and KCB have partnered with this technology company from China, and this company's platforms are cloud native, microservices-based core banking systems. They have helped NCBA's digital banking platform Loop to be able to scale across quite a number of markets across Africa without necessarily having any physical branch presence in those markets. This is quite interesting. And it will be interesting to see how this player moves beyond Kenya. In Nigeria, I think they are already powering the Central Bank of Nigeria's local card ecosystem. This story is beginning of Murong, and we'll be seeing more interesting stuff coming out of them. Now, my next story is on banking's new frontier, how fintech M&As are starting to really have an interesting impact across Africa. We've seen between 2021 and to date about 26, 27 fintech acquisitions or mergers and acquisitions transactions. And this is interesting because the fintech market across Africa, both from a fintelco perspective, those are the mobile money players, and from a perspective of native fintech platforms like Cellulant and Flutterwave, Fair Money, Money Point, there is lots of activity. A lot of these fintechs are either acquiring microfinance banks, partnering with major banks, or in some cases, we're starting to see some of these banks looking at fintech acquisitions across the continent. We are also seeing players like PalmPay and OPay starting to operate super apps. We are seeing players in Kenya like PesaPoint taking on some of the major banks when it comes to POSs, that's point of sale platforms, point of sale systems or units, and literally taking over the market. Today, if you walk into retail centers across Kenya, you will see PesaPal's brand all over these POS systems. We now move to my third story, which is the crypto story of Nano Labs. Nano Labs is a tech company based in the US, and a couple of days ago, they announced a $1 billion acquisition of or buying of BNB's volume of coins. BNB is Binance's, as I mentioned earlier, native coin. That $1 billion accounts for 10% of BNB's available coins. This is a major conversation to have. I had a conversation a couple of days ago with some of my colleagues, and the big story was how Nano Labs has acquired or bought these BNBs. They bought these BNBs as a treasury strategy to take out some of the monies in fiat currency and put it in crypto to manage their diversity when it comes to treasury. Let me tell you guys, for me, the big story is really how such an organization can say crypto is going to be a key play in our treasury strategy. And this is important from an African perspective because big organizations are starting to shift their treasury strategies and moving towards crypto. We are starting to see crypto as mainstream in financial services. How is this going to take shape from a pan-African perspective? Obviously, we have issues when it comes to policy and regulatory structures. We have seen that the recent play from a U.S. perspective, what they call the Genius Act, precipitating a lot of crypto plays, especially from a stablecoin perspective. Is there going to be a ripple effect happening in Africa? Is it a wait and see, or has it already started to happen? Nigeria and South Africa are playing a big role in this space. They have crypto enabling policy and regulatory frameworks. South Africa has the largest number of crypto exchanges already registered and operating under the gambit of the South African regulatory authorities. Kenya, we are about to enact our own virtual assets bill, and that is something I'm going to talk about in length in the next couple of days because there's something happening there that's apparently not kosher, and we seem to be humping along, stopping and moving forward, then moving backwards. And in the land of M-Pesa, this is not something that we really need to be doing. We need to get our act together. My next story is, and this one I'm going to have to read because it's stranger than fiction. Grift in Trump's crypto network. This is the new American hustle. A few days ago, I learned that there is a company called Tron. Is a crypto company whose founder was under some Securities and Exchange Commission investigation. They announced a reverse merger. Reverse merger simply basically means a smaller company is acquiring a much bigger company to get access to the capital markets. This is a high-stakes dance of regulatory hopscotch and political nepotism. This is a masterclass in how to launder legitimacy through Wall Street. Let me break it down for you. Tron skips the IPO line by merging with, wait for it, a toy company. Yeah, you had me right. A toy company, so that they can get into the IPO conversation. This deal is brokered by a company called Dominari Securities. I mean, even the name should give you shivers. It is headquartered in Trump Towers, and it is staffed. Some of their advisory board members include Donald Jr. and Eric Trump. Do those names sound familiar to you? In Kenya, we have something we call Muzungu as a service. Apparently, in America, we have something called nepotism as a service. Go figure. The SEC fraud probe of Tron founders, it has magically been put on ice during the Trump administration. This is a regulatory miracle that has been included into this fantastic play of Tron and SRM. Meanwhile, Justice Son, that is the founder, splashes millions on Trump-aligned ventures while quietly securing boardroom access. What is the result? A publicly traded shell company whose business model is basically hold crypto. Guys, surely, what is going on? This whole crypto conversation in the US, this whole story around crypto friendliness, should we say this is state capture at scale? And what will be the impact in the crypto space after all these? I mean, Trump is not going to be the president for the rest of his life, although he would wish to, but that's not the American way. What happens when Trump is no longer the president after 4 years? What happens to the whole crypto ecosystem in the US and in the world in general? Because for better or worse, America is still the leader when it comes to financial services worldwide. Lastly, I want to talk about leadership at the crossroads from a policy, strategy, and Africa's tech identity perspective. There's so much going on right now from an African perspective. We have infrastructure in the billions, digital infrastructure in the billions being built. We have policy conversations around crypto, around data protection, around artificial intelligence. The trillion question, the $1 trillion question literally is this. Are we going to see another scramble for Africa when it comes to all these things coming together? Because you have the hardware stuff, you have the hardcore digital infrastructure stuff, telephone masts, fiber optics, underground cables, the works. Then you have the software side. Then you have the policy and regulatory side. All these things need to come together to be able for this continent to move in the right direction. Finally, are we going to get this right, guys? This time around, are we going to get this right? I leave that question as we close this week's weekly roundup. Asanteni sana.